Well, it's 5:59 and everybody comfortable getting rolling? All right, great. Well, I'll call the meeting to order and we'll move into the administrative items. So I'll make a call for any additions or changes to the agenda. Okay.
One tiny thing.
Sure.
It was just a little correction on the 8 o'clock executive session. The statute is 313A3. Wouldn't want that to be wrong.
I do have that in my notes as well. And I guess I'll comment on that as well. I added some notes into Kari's memo about at the end of the meeting. So I think that it would be appropriate for majority of the members to consider going into executive session, but right now I've kind of structured the consideration of the appointments individually, and should we find the need to go into executive session, well, we can do that. We're supposed to do it only for individual appointments anyway. So right now it just looks like it starts at 8, but it's meant more to be there as needed. So we'll just kind of make a note of that. Any other adjustments? I don't think that qualifies as a change, so we probably don't need to vote on it, but we'll get to that. The approval of minutes from March 24th, which are posted in the shared drive. Hopefully everybody's had the opportunity to review those. Do we need to have any conversation about them? Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. And a vote to approve the board orders is also posted to.
I have a question. Please, on the minutes.
Sure.
This is Paul Olander. I'd like to direct your attention to the section on the DRB candidate interviews and ask if that is an accurate characterization of those interviews, please.
Well, it's brief.
Brief? It couldn't have made me look like more of a boob and less qualified to be a DRB member if the writer had tried. I don't know if you recall that I sat for several minutes and spoke about my candidacy, and far more than my name and where I live.
It's true, she did not capture that portion of the dialogue.
Well, certainly it would warrant treating the characterization of that conversation as we have for everything else. We don't have a specific standard for the amount of detail, but we've done it in other areas in the minutes, and all the meetings are recorded, so we can get those amended in writing before they are adopted.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for raising the concern. So we'll table that, and thanks, Paul, for bringing it up. So if we could move on to board orders. Kari, you had some notes on some of the board orders. Do you want to speak to those before?
I don't need to. Yeah, nothing. I didn't. I guess I'll mention that I did not get back in time to. I was away for the weekend and was going to work on the swim fund payment for the dock, and I will bring you something at the next meeting instead. So that was a little bit, just the background on that was a little bit convoluted because we only have half of the amount appropriated in this year's budget, but the full amount needs to be paid before Mark can purchase the dock and have it installed for this swim season. So the select board had approved a draw from the investment fund that we will replenish with next year's appropriation. So you'll see that again in 2 weeks. Everything else is, I think, clear enough unless you have any questions.
So with that, I'd entertain a motion to adopt to approve and sign the board orders as they were posted to the share drive.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, great, thank you. We have a request to authorize the purchase of a laptop for the zoning administrator for a total of $768, which is a remarkable price, I think, considering.
Actually,
Uh,
Tegan's recommending that you approve up to $1,000
Yeah.
because the prices are pretty volatile right now.
Well, and also that's just the purchase of the laptop, and then there'd probably be a fee from RB for setting up a new machine, right? Because we'll need to we'll need to connect it to the domain as
Yeah.
well, so.
There'll be some cost.
Yeah, fairly nominal cost, so I think bringing that up to a not to exceed would make sense, and I think $1,000 probably
Okay.
covers that. Does that sound about right, John? Okay. And that would be coming out of the technology budget, which currently has
Technology
plenty,
fund,
our technology fund.
which
Yep.
has just under $25,000.
Yep. So can I get a motion to approve the purchase of a laptop for the zoning administrator for a amount not to exceed $1,000 funded through the technology reserve fund?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. And the authorization to authorize the payment of the greater loan interest. Kari, you want to speak to that?
Sure,
briefly?
so this is another payment that you'll see in the warrant next time. But I realized in putting this together that we had not included the payment for the road grader interest in this year's budget. Partly because we hadn't approved, the town hadn't voted on the bond, we hadn't applied for the loan or received the loan. It was really just in theory at that point, so, and I realized in reviewing this, I hadn't given you the amount, it's $5,792.15. So that seems appropriate to come out of the highway capital equipment fund, which, as you know, you just replenished after the purchase of the Ford. So there's approximately 160,000 in there. I'll give you the detail on that, but, you know, the short of it is that the interest payment is due. There's no, avoiding that, and it's either gonna come out of the highway equipment fund or it's just gonna be an overage on our budget this year.
Yeah.
So if you're okay with it, I don't need a formal approval now, but if you're okay with it, I'll prepare the payment for next time out of the equipment fund.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, stands to reason for me. Thanks, Kari. Approve and sign the Memorial Hall rental agreement. So this is the rental agreement for the August event.
August 22nd,
Um,
volunteer appreciation event.
Is everybody able to review that? And I think it's just, is it an authorization for one of us or do?
Just one signature.
Just one signature.
And I filled it out in Jordan's name.
Yeah. So could I please have a motion to authorize me to sign the rental agreement with Memorial Hall for the volunteer appreciation event that we've been discussing in August?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Ratify the change to the Bliss Pond culvert grant. So this is a 2025 structures grant that we talked about during the last meeting and
Yeah, it was in
approved.
March,
Yeah.
and you had approved that application for Adamant, or Haggett Road, sorry. But then subsequent to that, we received the estimates from the engineers on what those two culverts would cost, and the Haggett Road culvert was significantly more, so I called each of you, and you gave me the verbal go ahead to apply for the Bliss Pond instead, which has been done. I just think it ought to be formalized.
So can I get a motion to ratify that adjustment?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The signing of the select board rules and procedures. So that now includes the modifications that we had discussed previously. And can now be signed complete. Everybody had the chance to read those adjustments. Great. I get a motion to adopt and sign the select board rules and procedures as modified.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, thank you. And the last one is the CV fiber and well, NEK CV fiber governing board annual appointments resolution. That is to be signed by all of us, is that correct? Or
Just the chair.
just the chair? So does anybody have any questions about that?
So Jared's already the rep, right? This is just redoing it for a year, and David wanted to be added as an alternative.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Is that the other one?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. So can I get a motion to authorize me to sign the governing board annual appointments resolution for CV Fiber NEK?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we've got a period of public comment for anything that is not on the agenda. And generally we reserve 15 minutes for this and split it up between members of the public who have something to discuss or bring up. We've got a pretty full agenda. So is there anybody here to comment on anything that's not already on the agenda, or is everybody in attendance just here to talk about current agenda items? All right. Then if everybody's comfortable with it, I'd say let's move on to curb cut application.
Actually, we got John next, isn't
No,
Oh, okay. I guess-
but
Sorry.
since we're moving
Sorry.
ahead of schedule, it could be John, I guess. Yeah, that works for me. It's been, I'm sure, a long day for John already, so. So John, yeah, we just, thanks for coming to the meeting. We just wanted to get a check-in on the book, so there's not a particular intention other than wanting to check in to see how things are going, and just see if you have any line of sight on anything for the year that you want us to make sure that we are paying attention to, or working with CAR to pay attention to.
The biggest problem we're having now is that truck, not getting it. For the truck that we purchased already.
Western Star.
Yeah.
It's sitting in a lot, and it's got a 2-year waiting list on it for the truck to be finished. And we found other trucks, but they're ready to go, but we can't get out of that lease or something.
Yeah.
Other than that, we just found out we've got a list, maybe 12 culverts that failed this winter. And I'm not sure if it was because of the severe cold we had a couple times, but almost all of them lifted up. And when they would set back down, the collars were gone. So they're all, we make a list of them, we temporarily patch them, and we're going to replace them this summer. And hopefully we don't have a flood and we don't have to do more.
Were those culverts that were recently replaced, or are those
No.
those are still lingering older ones?
They're older metal culverts.
Yeah.
And the one culvert was in, the work that we did for the state grant
Yeah.
on Marshfield and East Hill, and that was okay at the time, it was stable, but the upheavals did it.
Yeah.
There is one culvert that's newer, that's causing us concerns, and that's on Nelson Pond Road. We had a contract to replace it after the hurricane, or after the flood.
Yeah.
And, they ran into some buried cables there that weren't marked.
Right.
So they did the best they could do. Then we had to go back out last winter again because where these cables are going through under pipes, we can't get the culvert low enough. And it actually lifted the culvert, the frost lifted the culvert up and the stream ran underneath it. And it just happened again this year. There'll be a third visit on this culvert. And we're gonna try to talk to CV Fiber and the phone company, see if they can go aerial for a short distance. So we can get the culvert deeper.
Yeah.
We've been, the first thing we addressed this spring was the mud. And we tried to avoid, so no roads were impassable. And I think we got a pretty good handle on all that right now. And
Yeah.
we're going back and we're trying to start finished grade. Which today was I called it, everybody came in. We have 2 part-timers that couldn't live without on the graders. And they both came in, and I'm just hoping the weather holds for giving a good day so we can all set up. They're not coming in Tuesday or Wednesday because of the storms coming in, and they're scheduled to come in Thursday again. It's Ed and Bruce, we would be lost, both of them.
Yeah.
So as far as the crew's going, we hired Drew this fall.
Yeah.
We had a vehicle catastrophic failure where the rear fell out of the truck in the middle of a snowstorm. Normally that's roughly $8,000 to $10,000 repair with a tow truck and taking it all up there. We got it back to the shop, we looked at it and fixed it.
Oh, that's great.
I've been doing it a lot. So our crew, Tyler and Drew and myself, and we just lost Steve. Everybody works together. There seems to be nothing that's insurmountable to us.
That's great.
And we have an outstanding boss. When we get jammed up, we get over with Ari. And Ari takes care of that. And then we do have our select board liaison he works for us.
Yeah.
He gets to see more and more on hand what we go through every day. How, you can make a plan and then something else is bang, you're doing something else. Everybody's been to chainsaw schools. We're all first aid qualified, traffic flagger certified. We're doing good. It's not like us one person in charge. It's basically a group effort. And there's discussions. There's never really got a heated discussion. There's, maybe we should do this first before that type of stuff. And it seems to work out pretty well. And our select board is, of course, different from before. And they seem to be backing us up on stuff. We really appreciate the small truck we got. That already has saved the amount of salt we go through. We had to run a big truck. And it was an older truck and salt was falling out of it when he was going from blacktop and causing the hole. So now the new truck, we're using hardly any salt. It's been out like 5 or 6 times so far. I don't think we have any complaints. Everybody's happy.
Great. Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate the work. I think we've had a pretty mild mud season compared to the last couple. It hasn't been quite as intense. Hopefully, knock on whatever wood is available. Yeah, let's just not. Yeah.
Testing something out.
Yeah.
We were using, instead of straight chloride, we were using, called magnesium chloride.
Yeah.
And that was, instead of just putting calcium down for dust control, the magnesium chloride was supposed to be a binding agent for the road.
Mm-hmm.
And we exceeded our budget. We were sorry, brought that to our attention. But it calls for more treatment, more application gallons per, and we're not even doing what they're saying to do. We're doing it lighter than that. And I want to think that that held the road together a little bit more.
Mhm.
But the way this winter has been, it's hard to say.
Yeah,
We are going to cut that back. You might even go next, we might make some water this year.
well, I appreciate you taking a look at that. I mean, I think the material usage and budgeting is a continuous improvement exercise. We went through it this budgeting season, trying to kind of right size our material budgets, and yeah, and stockpiling, I think, is a significant consideration and sourcing material. So
We have talked about, we can't really store anything in our shop, Bill, right? We can't store anything there as far as just the sand.
yeah.
There's no room for stone or anything like that. And I've been to some meetings with other towns where they're trying to get a consortium to go together where we can get a warehouse and like buy the bales and couch for the hydro shooters and stuff. If you get a tractor trailer load and the cost goes way down, but it's just, we have a really tight area that we're in.
Yeah, well, I mean, that I'm certainly aware of that, and has been kind of fairly top of mind for me. And there are a number of issues that I think with the garage and that site and deferred maintenance and all kinds of stuff. We need to be making a kind of an active plan and figuring out how we're going to address a lot of that. And getting the feedback, I think, from the road crew on like where you guys think that we have areas to take advantage of some of like those regional partnerships or something like that. I think makes a lot of sense. And I think it's great that you guys are already thinking about that. There have been conversation among board members to think about where those opportunities might be. That it sounds like the state is also putting a lot of effort and trying to find ways for smaller municipalities to partner on those types of things, because we're going to have to. And I think the reality of the next few years is that we're going to have to get really creative about how we fund some of these things and keep costs under control.
We do have state resources that you
Yeah.
call Holly or Todd, and anything you ask them, they get right back to you.
Well, as those ideas come up, feel free to pass them along to Kari, and so we can keep a kind of a running list of what those opportunities are. And we literally just started talking about like how we might be able to start meeting more regularly with some of the other select boards in the area, or just trying to pull from as wide a knowledge pool as possible so we can try to identify opportunities for collaboration. Because it sounds like the state is trying to encourage folks to move in that direction on a number of different levels. So does anybody else have any other comments or questions specifically for John?
I just want to publicly say that I so appreciate
Yeah.
John. I mean, I don't think people realize how much he does for our town.
Yeah.
He's up early, he's often up late, including last week, there was a issue where he was just about to get in the shower right now, and he got called out, and he just went straight out and got it taken care of. And weekends, there's been a lot of weekends. A lot of weekends this winter, and what John says it is a real team effort, but I talk to John almost every day.
Yeah.
And so I just have this real appreciation and admiration for what you do. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Yeah, thank you.
John, I just want to say I'm Barbara McAndrew, I'm a new select board member, and I'm delighted with what you do for our town, and I really
Oh
appreciate
my
it.
gosh, where do you live at?
I live on Robinson Cemetery, but
Oh, you had greater together today.
Awesome. We had nothing to do with that.
yeah. It's been pretty mellow over there this year, but
Yeah.
thank you.
And we get residents help us on Robinson Cemetery. No, it was open, too.
Always glad to help.
Well, thanks, John. I appreciate it. You're welcome to stay, but you don't need to. Well, actually, I guess we could go on to the curb cut.
Yeah, well, we did that one.
That would be great. Patrick, hey, you don't necessarily have to move to a hot seat, but we have the application paperwork. It seems pretty straightforward to me. It looks like it was a recent purchase for you guys. I know that
Yes,
parcel has
yeah.
been for sale for a while.
Yeah, we've been in the house about a month now.
Nice.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so, our plan for the curb cut is, we have plans for a future garage along
Yeah.
Lightning Ridge. And, the driveway that we'd be building off of Lightning Ridge would be the access to the garage. And it would become our main access, to the house as well.
That is what it looked like to me relative to where it was being.
Yes, that tree will be,
Is that yours or the?
it's ours, yeah. Yeah, there'll be a tree removal as part of it.
That location was where we had trouble with the rocks.
Yeah, and it seems like the line of sight is good relative to curb cut standard for a 30-mile-an-hour road. With the exception of I guess, so the private road that you're pulling the curb cut off of and putting it onto Lightning Ridge. I don't know if that counts as an intersection of like town highways, because it's a private road. Yeah, there are plenty from Tucker, that it's just you're supposed to be on a 30-mile-an-hour road, like 200 feet from an intersection, ideally, but there's also plenty of line of sight past that road, and I think that road only serves one other residence, and
Yes.
this being the second one, so it's basically a private drive.
Yeah, it's 186 feet.
Yeah.
From Douglas Drive.
Oh, okay. That was shorter than
That
that.
area is tight and it does get tricky.
Yeah.
And you will get snow in your yard.
No, that's okay.
And it doesn't look like there's a need for a culvert there, is that right? Because the driveway is,
Okay.
yeah, great. Well, I don't see any other particular objections or issues.
So can I just ask, is there someone on the town staff that has already looked at this application?
Yeah,
Who's that?
Tyler,
Hi.
Tyler and Drew went out looking at it.
Okay. And
They came back to me and told me it was good, and that's my plow area. and
Okay.
I'm very familiar with the area.
it looks okay. Thank you.
John, so I assume, are you guys planning on like just discontinuing use of the other curb cut that's on Doug Lilly Drive?
Not in the near future. The garage probably won't be going in for like a year. So,
Okay.
So we have a grading contractor coming,
Get the curve.
in mid-May to prepare like a pad for a shed and to grade the existing driveway. So that was kind of what gave us the motivation to get this other driveway made
Mhm.
while the grading contractor was on site.
You have the zoning application.
Yeah, and I have the application for the zoning permit, but I just wanted to get the curb cut permit approved first.
That's the right order of operations for sure. So if, are, single family resident curb cuts usually updated on the town plat, or is just the record of the approved application Because right now, there's a plat that's on file that was, it looks like that was a lot line adjustment from when Doug originally made the adjustment to that parcel slightly, but that also calls out a curb cut, which I think is a little unique.
I don't recall that curb cut on that plat, but it's not common for a curb cut to be
Recorded like that.
surveyed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and filed, yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious. All right. With that, Doug, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think where you want to put your road, you want to put the septic tank comes out around behind underneath the septic tank. So it looks to me like you're gonna have your road, pick up your road and mess up your leach field and the whole. Do what you want to do, it's none of my business. But I'm just telling you, that's what you're gonna find.
Yep.
Well, I think we can approve it. We don't have any of the wastewater information on the application. That's kind of outside of the scope of purview for a curb cut application, but we can approve it. And should there need to be an adjustment for whatever reason, then you can bring it back and we can consider it then.
Okay.
So can I get a motion to approve the curb cut application for Patrick?
So moved.
All in favor?
I
Aye. Any opposed? Doesn't sound like it. Congratulations, welcome to Calais. Yeah.
Moving here.
That's right.
Perfect. We're glad to have you.
Great, well, thanks, John. Appreciate it. Right. Map conservation proposal. So there was a proposal, this is the historic map that was. Did Donna make it on the list?
Donna was good, joined by Zoom, she's not feeling well.
Okay,
Do we wanna wait for her? Do you have any reason to think she would?
This was the time she was gonna log on.
Yeah, we're 20 minutes early, right?
Are we, do
Yeah.
For
yeah.
what's on the agenda, yeah.
you wanna handle the road inventory data collector position? Maybe that's
Sure.
another time.
yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Okay.
Great.
So you asked last time that I bring back a draft job description, for this position, and so I've done that with a job posting, some language. Basically, the idea here is it would be a seasonal position to get this single project done of collecting data about the hydrologically connected road segments around town, of which there are over 1,000. And, so with, Regional Planning Commission's help, we were estimating it's between 250 to 300 hours of work. And 80% reimbursable by the grant that we received from VCHANS. And, you know, we're obligated to do this, data collection if we want to participate, receive the permit, participate in the funding, which we do. So, so that's basically the proposal, and when we had the discussion, in agenda planning, I think there's the option, since this is a very limited scope, you could just delegate the hiring of this to me, or I can do the interviewing and bring back recommendation, either way.
Sorry, we're thinking this was a summer job?
Yeah. I think we're pretty flexible on when it gets done. The data doesn't have to be collected and uploaded until October of 26.
Yeah.
But I just soon get it done.
Yeah. Everything falls apart.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm comfortable with the hiring happening by car, you know, with car taking care of it, and not needing it to come back to the select board. It seems it's a short-term role, so.
Yeah, so I guess we could adopt the job description and authorize Kari to post it and interview and hire as he sees fit, you know, for that role. I think it's important to note that the funding for the position is 80% funded, through, that state grant. So, I think it's kind of a no-brainer, to try to get the work done before it's due, or, yeah, started. That sounds great. So is everybody comfortable with that plan?
Kari has no objection.
No, that's fine with me.
Could I have a motion to, I guess, approve the job description, that was provided by Kari, and have the job posted and authorize Kari to administer interviews and make a hiring decision?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. I don't know if that saved us a whole lot of time.
Well, Donna joined.
No, perfect.
Look at that.
Nice. On mute, Donna. Donna, you. Yep,
I'm here.
there, yeah. All
Can you
right,
hear
I'll
me?
I can, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So I'll serve this item up again for members of the public, but this is a historic map that was found through a former member of the community. It's a pretty cool resource and artifact, I think, of the community. And so Donna is done some homework on resources needed to conserve the map. And that's what's up for consideration now. It sounds like, Donna, that would be like stabilizing the existing map, having it digitized to be used and saved for the future. Is that about right?
Yes, there are 3 maps, and one is the original town parcel map on vellum, or the conservationist refers to it as on leather, and that's from 1783. And then the second map was rolled up in a tube, and that's from the early 1800s. And then there's a third smaller map that was given to me by Anne Wheelock that her parents had held on to all these years. So there's 3 maps, and they'll all be cleaned. And then they're going to be put in a, what's it called? They're going to be, each one will be placed in what is called an archival window mat, and then put in an archival box. So they can be held in the town vault, but then they can also be taken out for people to look at. They could be on display, but not for long periods of time. And then a professional photographer is going to photograph the map. So we'll have a digital copy that we can, send to people, print out and sell.
Yeah, I was thinking, I don't know. I think old maps are really cool and interesting, and relative to the amount of interest that we had in the map that Barbara put together for town meeting this year. It just happened. I just happened to be thinking about, oh, this would be an interesting way to kind of raise some money and pad the records budget, and since we've been kind of entertaining how we might be able to receive funds like that through other initiatives. So certainly not a prerequisite, but I think digitizing it offers an interesting opportunity to try to sell some of these things to the community for a reasonable price. So the amount of $1,595, is that based on a quote from the conservator?
Right. Yeah, it's Mary Jo
Davis.
She was recommended by Rachel Oneff at the Vermont State Archives and Records Administration. So she's been around a long time, Mary Jo has. And Mary Rockstad has worked with her. Mary resigned from, retired from the Vermont Historical Society last year.
Well, my other roles in life, I'm going through a preservation process, and I know how delicate these things are, and the cleaning process needs to be done really carefully. So I'm glad to have somebody who's recommended and has experience with them. So I think we'll take a motion to
So are we
authorize.
good with all three? Because originally I just thought there was just one vellum map, and now we have a copy and then we have another copy. And
It's not an exact copy of the original map. It's a copy of the map, maybe 100 years later.
okay, so these are different.
With other names on it. So the first map from 1783 has very few residents' names because the land hadn't been sold yet. But then 100 years later, there are residents' names because the land has been purchased.
Hmm.
Got it.
And
They're different maps.
I don't know if you got all the information, but for each map, there is a technical examination and then a treatment proposal. So there was, 2 documents for each map. I'm not sure if all of that got forwarded to you.
But it does include digital photographing for all three, and they're all preserved. Yeah, okay.
And this was a quote and not an estimate, so this is a firm price?
This is a firm price, right?
Okay.
And then what's the plan for the originals?
Well, they would be, preserved in this box with a window that you can see it, and they would be kept in the vault at the town office. But we could, display them on special occasions.
Right.
But we'll have
So-
digital copies that we can do whatever we want with.
Are these town I mean, these were lost and now they're found and they are town records, right? I mean, the town of Calais owns these, even though you brought them to us, Donna?
Yes, they're town of Calais records.
They existed before the town of Calais,
Yeah.
so I don't know who owns them.
Form of the town of Calais. It's
Okay,
the original division lines.
Okay, this-
Undeveloped, or whether it was from an actual, from veal skin, cat skin, or some kind of animal, we scraped it and put ink on it.
wow.
Yeah. Sounds like they'd be ours. They're gonna have to stay, I think, preserved in a way that they can't be exposed to UV for an extended period of time. They'll start to degrade
Right.
pretty quickly. So, but having the digitization, I think in the quote is pretty critical. And then,
Yeah.
I really like the idea of, having them put together in a larger format and then displayed, town hall, we were even talking about like maybe doing a reprint like at each of the community stores would be
Yeah.
just a cool way to decorate the walls, but that could be considered at a later time or funded through, the sale of smaller maps or something like that.
And
But yeah,
researchers can access them anytime in the vault.
Mhm.
In their archival window maps.
in their gloves.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing the legwork and investigating that, Donna. That's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I think we, in this motion, yeah, Barbara?
I think perhaps there's paperwork here to be signed, is that correct, Kari? That was
There's-
delivered to the
there's
town
3.
office today.
Requiring a single, signature.
Is that for this work? So we would be authorized, okay, yeah. So that would be a motion to, authorize me to sign or Kari to sign, if anybody has a preference, and then I guess we could also include maybe Donna to coordinate, if you're interested in that, Donna, or?
Yes, I'll pick that up from the town office and then I can scan it and send it to Mary Jo.
Great. Do we need to name the provider in the motion?
Oh, yeah, the letterhead says Waukee.
Yeah,
Westford.
washi, that's her business name. I think it's a type of Japanese paper.
It is, yeah.
And remember the proposal is that this come out of the records preservation fund.
Yes.
It's
So,
unbudgeted.
Her name is Mary Jo Davis, if you want to include that.
And that's,
motion to authorize hiring Mary Jo Davis of Washi for records treatment and conservation work as quoted for $1,595, and that'd be an authorization to for Kari to sign the quote, and for Donna to help facilitate and coordinate the conservation.
With payment coming from the record.
With payment coming from the Records Preservation Fund.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Donna.
You're welcome.
Really great.
cool document.
And that leaves, yes, Barbara.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but for the purpose of the minutes, could we ask Andre to identify the last name?
Andre, can you hear us? No.
Hi there, it's
Oh, wait,
Dave
where's-
hyphenated Andresen.
Okay, I'm sorry, it just shows up as Andre on the
Right,
screen. so-
I know, I have no idea why it's done that, I'll have to
And I'm here
change.
too.
And Dot's here too, so,
Got it, thank you.
yeah, it's the same as last time.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Chris. The next item up is the public hearing. Is that right? Or do you have?
We're a little early.
Yeah, so do we want to? We could dip into reports.
Certainly. Ian left. Ordinance.
Ordinance
I
Advisory
think we
Committee.
have a whole lot to update on. We met and are sort of still wrapping our heads around all the different road ordinances, and I think it's gonna be several meetings before we have a whole lot to report back on. We're just digging in and getting our bearings. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a short report from Woodbury Park.
Jamie, just
Yeah.
for
Oh, yeah.
information, there are some things that
Oh,
the committee
I'm gonna
has
start inviting you back more.
recommendations before, but you're gonna go through them again, is that right?
Very distracted.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so we're giving an opportunity for the new members of the committee. Once they're officially appointed, to review the 2 Curtis Pond and dog ordinances. And they've already started looking at those. And then probably in the next month, we'll be ready to bring those first 3 to the select board and start the official process.
And it does look like I may be able to contribute to that. So we kind of discussed about folks coming on or not, but it's looking a little better for me now that I'm going to be traveling for the next couple of months, but things are looking good. So I'll just add more to the plate.
Well, just let me know and I will have to
Okay. Great. Well, thanks for doing that work. We can talk about that later. Kari, do you want to dip into your more
Sure.
report?
So I had a couple of things. One is, and I mentioned this in the memo, but I'm looking at check scanning. So this would scan, rather than deposit checks into the bank physically, run the checks through a scanner and deposit them electronically, which would save a trip and speed up the process a bit. And so, the bank, our bank, Community National raised this as an option, done a bit of research. I got some really helpful advice from Vermont League of Cities and Towns, talked with Sandra about it. Sandra actually started scanning checks for Calais, but the internet wasn't sufficient. So they backed out, but she thinks it's a great idea. I think it would help her with delinquent tax collection. And I just wanted to check with you before I proceed any further, because there is expense and we didn't budget for this. So the scanner itself has to be compatible with what our bank offers. And so I'm looking at something, a model between 400 and 800, depending on the quantity, and then newer refurbished. I think new is probably would be my preference. And then the bank is charging a $25 a month fee for the service. They say they've already knocked that down 25, but I think there may be still some room on that. But I just wanted to check with you before I move forward with even bringing you a proposal, and getting, you know, well, before I move any further, does this make sense to you? I think it pays for itself, not in the first year, but probably within a couple of years. Yes.
Save, I mean, it pays for itself in terms of staff time, I would think. If we've got staff driving back and forth
Yeah.
to town.
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to me. It's just, we're so small. We don't do as much volume as if, a larger organization would make all the sense in the world. I think we're really, there's a clear benefit is that during tax collection season, we're across these hundreds and hundreds of checks.
Scanners like single purpose, they scan only checks, or is it just a?
Yeah, that's what they do.
That was my question so it's a requirement to basically have a specific. tool.
Yeah, these little desktop.
And it's a security issue, that's a more secure approach than, many of us are just using our phones to take photos. I'm not suggesting that.
Why,
Why do we have this separate piece of equipment?
Yeah, I don't think that I don't know that your phone, the remote deposit is the bank, that the bank allows that for such volume, because we are talking hundreds of checks a year. And I think this does a better job. I don't know about the security part of it. I'd have to ask about that.
I'm surprised that they're charging this.
Well, yeah, so
I mean, they're doing their work.
Yeah, I agree.
In the day job that we played around with that, we had a check scanner for a while, but I'm pretty sure it was because it did have to be like an approved one. There was a service charge, but we were just like renting the piece of equipment, which ended up being a benefit because like our experience at least was that it was super glitchy. And like breaking all the time, and we had to trade it out a number of times. To the point that I think we just bailed on it altogether. So, I mean, I'm a little hesitant to go with the purchase of a piece of equipment just from my previous experience, and I'm just a little annoyed that the bank is wants us to buy a unit.
Yeah, I assumed it would be the bank's equipment and they were, just helps their customer. Business with them.
Right.
This is their arrangement.
Okay.
They work with a vendor that provides beneficial pricing. I actually did some comparisons. They're cheaper than Amazon for the same model, not that much, but this is the way Community National does it. I don't know how other banks.
Do we know how other towns do it? I mean,
Worcester scans and East Montpelier scans.
and
But they do business with a different bank.
right, I'm wondering if the bank is one of the challenges, but.
Yeah.
Barbara?
I can somewhat answer Barbara's question, because we've seen town clerks and treasurers talk about this on the MuniNet listserv. And a lot of town clerks or treasurers say that their banks provided the scanner for them. But apparently that's not what the community bank does. But maybe we could just press them on that and say that we've checked around, and a lot of the other municipalities around town, your banks provided to them. I mean, and Anna, who's the manager at Berry, is the one who started us on this. She recommended it to us. So there's probably a benefit to them if we do this. So.
Yeah, I can certainly ask.
Is it community or community national? It's community.
Community.
Oh,
It's Community Bank,
Oh, sorry,
yeah,
Community Bank NA, that's right.
yeah.
yeah, just not to be confused with community national.
That's right.
Also in Barry, they're right across the street from each other, right? Okay, that clarifies it. Well, tell them that community national rents. Because I know that for a fact. We'll have to march across the street if they don't straighten up.
It does feel a little bit like a push-pull of like if there's a fee every month and we have to do a scanner, that
Yeah.
feels like too much.
Yeah.
For the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, and to push back, but I totally
That's
appreciate,
helpful feedback.
I totally appreciate the impetus to do it and
Yeah.
it makes a heck of a lot of sense for
We get a better deal.
folks, yeah, there's some way we can do it, for less.
What was the other, sorry,
Take a minute here, I don't know who she is.
oh, well. It's our new recording.
Well, change, got younger.
That's an astute observation, Doug. Thank you. Yeah, this is, Kari, can I lean on you for an introduction? This is our new recording secretary, Shana, Shayna, I'm sorry.
Shana, sorry. Shana Dubois from East Calais.
I actually work at the East Calais General Store as well. And I recently moved to Vermont, but I'm originally from Michigan and all over. And I've been here, what did I say, 6 months, about 6 months? Right before the winter. So I got to experience a proper Vermont winter and I loved it. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. And I took over from Rose. We're still in contact, so she's still reviewing my notes as I go.
And Shayna is a retired military veteran, so thank you for your almost just over 2 decades of service.
No, I didn't retire. I only served.
You served?
I served. I didn't
Okay.
retire. 20 years. I did not do. I did 4 in the Marine Corps.
Okay, thank you so much.
And part of that is also providing a recording position for some of the other committees as well. So we have continuity across our committees and commissions for minute keeping. So we're excited to have you and thank you. And I'm sure Rose is immensely grateful to get some well-earned grandchild time.
Yeah. Today is actually her wedding anniversary, so she was particularly excited to have it.
Well, now I feel bad that she's not celebrating it with us, but. Great. Kari, did you have one other item that you wanted to?
Well, this feels a little bit like dropping a bomb, but I feel like I have to share it, which, and I talked about this with Jamie and Jordan the other day, but I do want to convey to you that I'm feeling a sense of impending fiscal crisis.
Oh,
And
along with the rest of the world.
yeah, there's a statewide, right? But I just had the realization in listening to the chair of the Green Mountain Care Board. So, the medical drives so much, and it's definitely going to be the big driver in our next budget. I think that the education tax rate relief that we saw this past year, we won't see that again. I wouldn't imagine. We won't see any of the benefits of any changes that are coming through the legislature for many years. We're facing loss of support from state and federal grants. I was at a bond bank seminar last week, and the message was, get ready for self-sufficiency, self-reliance is what they were talking about. And all of this is happening at a time where our residents won't necessarily be able to afford large tax increases. So I just feel this need, like we've got to start thinking about the implications of that we're going to be looking at potentially mission critical programs being reduced. And so I'm not sure exactly how to do that, but some kind of community conversation to get people prepared for that and help this group with a sense of what the priorities are going to need to be.
Hasn't the state already said they want to they're gonna, do less funding for highway.
The budget that the governor proposed and the House approved is significant reductions in paving and structures for next year. And if you saw, oh, so this is breaking news, I share this, the paving of Route 14, and through Calais has apparently been delayed. Greg Polchek said, actually, the word is 5 years.
Are you kidding?
Wow.
Yeah.
Administration.
And so, there was a report in the last couple of weeks in Digger, I believe, one of the transportation committee had saying, we're looking at going from a 10-year repaving cycle to 25. So these are the tea leaves that are not so subtle, I guess, but yeah, this is gonna trickle down to.
Turn it back to dirt.
They're gonna get there by default, I think is the. Yeah, we spent some time talking about this and I share those concerns. I think what's most concerning, knowing how much the insurance premium drove costs, you know, both on the education budget, but also for our own town budget. I guess, you know, my greater concern is that it is hard for us to find the thousands of dollars in the budgets to pick and choose from. And we're going to be talking about quantities that are so significant that any of those, you know, kind of prudent fiscal incremental decisions that we'd be making are just going to pale in comparison to what those costs are going to be.
Exactly.
And that, you know, I think it's encouraging that there are some, you know, there's a lot of creative thinking that's being had on the state level, but my concern, I guess, is that it doesn't happen. None of that stuff happens very quickly.
Right.
And those processes and procedures and resources don't get stood up very quickly to compensate for those types of things. I think that I was just looking at a infographic on national tax rates, and we're like third in the country right now for aggregated tax to support resources. And that's going to start getting painful. Yeah.
I just wanted to share that with you because I think we need to start thinking about this in advance of budget season.
And I think trying to get community participation in I think it's hard for these to do so in these meetings. And one of the ideas that Kari and I were kicking around last week was that we might want to think about like setting up some sort of particular like dedicated forum for trying to have this conversation about, you know, so that we can work through that dialogue, get folks in the habit of thinking about what those things could be, and not have to necessarily bog down the select board meetings. So if anybody kind of continues to ruminate on that and has any ideas, another concept that's been discussed is like how do we more regularly start meeting with adjoining towns to identify opportunities, whether it be select board cross attendance at other select board meetings, or we kind of appoint token representation and kind of facilitate the dialogue a little more informally, so that we're, you know, not so burdened by the logistics of having to schedule and warn various meetings. So if folks start to have some ideas on that, let's try to compile those. Do you have one already, John?
No, I just, something else that's been bothering me is related to this conversation. Might chime in.
Maybe. How much time do you need, John?
No, it's a 30-second.
Yeah, sure. Please.
Concern. You know, historically, if, you know, 3, 4, 5 people in town couldn't pay their taxes, the Board of Abatement would meet with them and we hear their concerns and try to figure something out. Pay their taxes at some level sometimes to some degree. But my long view, longer concern is we may get to a point where people cannot pay their taxes at all. and like a substantial number, and we're not gonna put half the town up for auction. And so we need to have that, you know, somewhere in the backs of our minds, and should be part of the kind of conversation in terms of what we could be prepared for. I think that's a very real possibility.
Thanks, John. I think that's right on point. It's a compounding situation. Well, with that warm and fuzzy note.
Yes.
Well, I
okay.
appreciate you bringing it up, Kari, and, appreciate the comment.
Yeah.
John, I just think, we can't, you know, we need to have both the nearest term view and the longer term view, right? And it's not just next year, I guess is what I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Is sort of where, you know, thinking strategically about where are the opportunities, and even in the context of the town plan as we move to that discussion. But some of those opportunities, there's opportunities there where we could focus that might help address some of this over time. So, and I'm a strong believer in collaborating across towns, and for communicating effectively to our legislators and governor of what, you know, what towns need in these times.
Thank you, Barbara. So what we have scheduled now is the public hearing portion of the meeting, which is scheduled for 7. So we're still doing a pretty good job staying on schedule and picking up some of the extra stuff. So this is a formal hearing for the select board to review, and the community to provide comment on the updated town plan that's been prepared and worked on by the Planning Commission. And because of the unique situation that we find ourselves in, this is also a hearing to consider the town regs that were updated and adopted 2 years ago, or 2 town meetings ago, last year, yeah, 2 town meetings ago by Australian ballot. So for context, just to kind of talk about the logistics a little bit before I hand things over to Jared and other members of the Planning Commission, is that right now we find ourselves in kind of a unique situation where we are in need of adopting a town plan because the previous one had expired, which is why we're also considering the readoption of the town regs. And a lot of work has gone into the updating and modifying of the town plan, but the last few months have been really focused on trying to adopt as many of those changes as we can so that we can try to get a plan adopted. But there are still other incremental changes that will likely and very likely need to be considered, including the revisiting or adoption of the natural resources segment of the town plan. So I think this, from the external perspective, this looks pretty strange, but that is the fuller context, and it has been a significant labor of the Planning Commission. So thank you to all of the members of the commission and anybody in the community who had stepped up and contributed. And with that, I will turn it over to Jared to kind of give a presentation of the town plan and the process that it went through, as well as go over some of the feedback that the commission had gotten during their hearing.
Yeah, so following Kari's rosy prediction of the future, let's talk about the next 8 years and what that's supposed to look like. So as Jordan mentioned, we've been working on the town plan for over a year now. And it became known to us in December last year that the town plan had expired, unbeknownst to us. And that expiration of a town plan made it so that the zoning regulations that were approved at town meeting in March of 23-4 were actually not valid any longer. So just by default, we went back to the old zoning regulations, and since December have been rewriting the town plan as much as we can to fit what were the old regulations, because the plan we had been writing had been written with the new regulations. So we've been kind of working roundabout, out of the way, and with our hair on fire a little bit, trying to get this done, because we need the zoning regulations to be in place. And so what I will say is that we have a town plan that is an imperfect vessel, but actually a pretty good document, we think, for what we've been doing. It's in a lot of ways a complete update from the last plan. A lot has changed since it was written in 2016, the first time. There was an amendment in 2021, that was to.
Forest integrity section.
There you go. So it was just to a section of the town plan. And so we've now rewritten the entire town plan without the natural resources section. The Conservation Commission has worked on that. We are still gonna work with them, to get that written, well. Because they've done a really good job, but the one that we have, there were some regulation changes that we need to make sure that it now fits statutory requirements. And so the idea here is that we have put forward a version of the town plan that we think will work for us for now, so that town plan can be locally approved. And that will allow select board to ratify the zoning regulations as voted on by the town in 2024. As soon as that happens, we at Planning Commission are then starting, and we're actually starting now, the process to update and rewrite the plan that we then just approved, to include the natural resources section, but also just one, what CVRPC has said. The CVRPC does have a copy, and they are reviewing, so that we will have anything that we've missed or that is statutorily required that needs to be in it, we can get that in it. And then we've been taking public comment. The way we've been doing public comment is that we can fix things that are grammatical errors, spelling errors, things like that, but we're not changing anything that is substantial. And we're not doing that right now, because if we did that, we have to go back through an entire process of about a month and a half before we can then rehear it again. And we have to have public hearings and warn it, and there's 15 days and then a meeting and then 30 days. And so it takes a while before we could do it again. So what we've done is we've collected all public comment into a spreadsheet. And we just continue to take that public comment, and we're keeping that. And what we're gonna do as a planning commission is go through those comments, comment by comment, and just discuss them as the planning commission and decide. I mean, we've gotten some comments that we've gone, oh yeah, that's a good idea, we should do that. But we're gonna go through it piece by piece and then update the plan from that. And our idea is that by the end of summer, hopefully, we could have now a new and finalized town plan. I'm gonna be honest, the hair was going away anyway right about here, but a lot more of it, I think, has gone from this part. So this will be my town plan bald spot. This is just normal. This one is not. The silver lining here is that it is really making us go through it really close and really getting public comment. And we think what will eventually become the final town plan will actually be a very well-written, very well sort of parsed out, community input driven town plan that we think will really do us well for that next 8 years. So that's where we are, the step here. So we had to approve the town plan after we held a public meeting, which we did. And then the next step is that select board would hold a public hearing, and then they would eventually hold a vote to approve the town plan. Once they do that, they could ratify the zoning regulations, and then we would be on our path to a new world order in Calais, which, again, thank you, Carter, for all your kind words. I've got John and Gary are here from Planning Commission. I saw that Melanie and Vicky are online. I didn't see anybody else, but we do have people here that hopefully, if you had questions about something specific, that we could answer. All of this is online. The document is online. I had a couple printed out that I printed at school, but it's
23
pages
23
long.
pages,
Thank
yeah.
you, 23. I wanted to say 24, but I don't think it's there. And so it's all online. You can make comments online. There is, if you go to the town website where all the information is, there's an email that you can email as well if you didn't want to fill it out. There's all kinds of ways to give us as much public comment as you want, but what I want people to know is that we're not making those changes now. What we're doing is collecting all those changes and going back and giving the due diligence of actually in a public setting of a planning commission meeting, listening and going through all of those changes so that we can make them as needed. So, I'll just say it again, Ann Winchester helped us really get this over the line. It was one of her last duties as select board. She kind of worked as liaison to help us finish that up. She did a great job, but the planning commission has worked really hard on it. Like I said, it's been over a year now. But we have now what we think is a good document that can at least get us through to now, to get us those zoning regulations, and then we can move forward. I hope that's what you're looking for, Jordan. But we're here to answer those questions with you guys, the public, whoever.
Yeah, so I'll just clarify, I probably should have done this at the beginning, but because we're kind of considering this a hearing for two different pieces of policy, we're obviously pretty focused on the town plan right now. And as Jared alluded to, the select board isn't going to be adopting the town plan this evening or the regs. That the plan is to do that on the 28th meeting. So this hearing is really intended to be a pretty open dialogue to make sure that we're capturing the feedback that was given to the planning commission during their hearing, and providing the public the opportunity to provide any additional feedback that they really think that the select board should hear directly before the adoption. And I guess my understanding of the kind of formal process that governs this is that we're that anything that's considered a substantive change would trigger a kicking this back down to the planning commission to have those substantive changes heard and adopted again, because the planning commission has already adopted the town plan. But that is a bit of an ambiguous term. So I think if there are like edits that need to be made that are grammatical or not complete rewrites, we may have the opportunity to give that feedback now and have it modified before adoption. So we'll finish kind of dialogue on the town plan, and then we'll entertain any dialogue around the zoning regs if need be, after we kind of conclude that feedback. So, Jared, I've got
John is here as well, hopefully then when we get to those zoning regs.
So, yeah, I've got a couple of questions that are clarification. So it sounds like, one, I'm curious, I guess, to have, if you can kind of summarize what some of the feedback, it sounded like it was a pretty well attended hearing for the planning commission. and you guys have obviously compiled the feedback in an organized fashion, is there a undertow of recurring themes in that feedback?
Yeah, I would say one, and Gary, John, anybody, I don't think we heard anything that we had at some point discussed on our own as something that was a question. At our public hearing, everything we heard was something at one point, somebody on the commission had already brought up. Or we thought, ooh, should we write that this way, or should this be included? It was all things that we had heard before. The main theme, I would say, would be making sure that we don't contradict ourselves in different portions of it, right? That we don't say this thing in housing and then say this thing in land use that go against each other, or something like that. That was one of the major things, that just making sure that, I mean, contradictions are going to exist in some way. It is kind of what it is, right? But making sure that there weren't things that were just blatantly like, well, you said to do this in this section, but then it says don't do this in this section. That was one of the major things that people brought up. But most of it was things that we had talked about, and we even made a couple of, if I remember, small changes after that, the public hearing, where people mentioning, oh, this part, right? There was this issue, and we said, well, we'll just take that out, right? Like oh, that was good, yeah. But it was, I don't think there was anything that was like an overarching theme that everyone kept saying, this is a problem, or this is a problem, or why didn't you do that? It was some very specific things that we had thought about or heard about. I don't know, Gary, John, or anybody online wanted to add in, Gary?
Yeah, in light of what Jared said, we intend in the rewrite to more specifically address places where there are conflicts between the different sections, and explain that those conflicts do exist, and that's one of the challenges of implementation. Because, you know, the natural resources section, which has been renamed, but I'm an old codger. Natural resources and economic development are going to be at loggerheads with each other. They're bound to be, and that's what you guys do, among other things. So there was that item that we addressed. We also, it was called up to our attention how many different ways we handled things under the heading of goals or action items in the different sections, and that they suggested that we come up with a format and stick with it in all the different sections. So that's something that we're going to specifically address. And then the third thing that was commented on was that the energy section was using data that was not current. And all that data came from the Regional Planning Commission. And we just tucked it in there in the 11th hour because we just wanted this thing to get passed. But we recognize that in the rewrite, we're gonna have to go out and get our own data and get it better, because what was there was not as accurate as it should be. Some of it was fine, but some of it was not. And so we need to upgrade that. And those are the three things that really occupied most of the comments that I recall. You know.
It does, yeah, no, that does help. I think, my personal position, I don't want to speak for the rest of the select board on this or anybody in the community, but I think we're going to have to live with how we look at these documents and revise them. And I think the zoning regulations are going to be falling into that category. And this is obviously a laborious effort. And it's hard to keep all of these things straight. And we need to refine our processes for revisiting these things more regularly. so that it doesn't feel like it's a complete rewrite every time we're doing it. So like, how are we gonna get that feedback? But as we've been kind of talking through this, it's also setting what the benchmarks are gonna be, and are we calling those goals? Who's responsible for them? You know, this is the guiding document, policy document that informs the select board's decision-making processes, budgeting, planning, as well as the commission's work as well. My concern about not getting those goals right and who's responsible for making those things happen is that this document also gets immediately tied to the zoning regulations. And so while I absolutely agree that it's the select board's job and scope of responsibility to inform and generate policy that's informed by this, the administration of some of that policy goes through the DRB as well, which is an independent quasi-judicial body. So I think we need to think carefully about how those things interact with each other.
Well, and I think what we've all learned over the now 4 or 5 months, how quick things can change. I think what you're saying is right. Like, we know we can amend this, and I think it would be beneficial for us to not just sort of throw it on the shelf and then wait till it's almost expired again and start over, right? We can see how fast things can change. I mean, I'm gonna bet a lot of what we've written is dependent on the fact that grants exist and those things can happen, right? And if it's written that way and then that changes, we're gonna have to be able to go in and fix that as we need to. And so I think we found that. We've also found that somebody needs to put it on a calendar somewhere when this thing expires. And let it notify whoever. Right? But 2, that a year wasn't even enough. That we needed well more than that. And so this is probably more of an ongoing process in the future than we gave it consideration for this time. That this needs to be more thoughtful and more planned out as we go. But we're gonna have to be more flexible, and we're gonna have to rewrite as we go in some ways, because things are just changing too fast. And we can't write a plan right now that's going to, it won't hold up for 8 years.
Well, one of the things that it was a change that we tried to like help facilitate it, because the editing process is that, you know, the select board decided we were going to schedule monthly meetings with the planning commission as they were rolling through getting feedback for each one of these segments. And I think that, you know, I've observed this with, you know, with the town regs, you know, there's a lot of work that gets put into this, and it's hard for a community member to keep up with all of the changes that are being made when they're being made as an entire 150-page document. And so I wonder if like breaking it into a more incremental revision or revisiting process gives the community an opportunity to contribute more specifically to areas, so that you don't have so much feedback, you know, coming in like a fire hose across the entire document. So that, and we're gonna keep going, so yeah.
So to help facilitate the planning commission in accomplishing that, the select board, we've created an annual calendar for the select board of all the things they need to do at what time each year of the year. And so we've added to it a spring, and knowing that the town plan was looking to get approved in the spring of this year, we've added to the select board calendar a spring and a fall check-in with the planning commission on the town plan every year. So 2 times a year, the planning commission is going to be hearing from the select board and saying, please come in and give us a report on the progress of your 8-year plan.
Yeah. Love it.
So do any of the select board members have specific, oh, I have one more, I'm sorry. I forgot. I didn't do anything. Has there been any specific feedback from CVRPC on their review? Okay.
They will give us wholesale change. Like they said they will give us the document back, then with their comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to clarify that's not a requirement for their review. It's advised that they take a look at it to make sure that
Correct.
they're not
Now, if
missing
we
anything.
want to, in this second phase, want to make it so that it actually goes, we can do that. But the review alone was 2 to 4 months lead time for them to go through it. And it's, I think, a 15-page checklist.
And that's underway currently? No.
Correct. We're probably about, I'd say, a month and a half since I gave it to them.
Are there fellow select board members that have specific questions or point of comment?
I mean, I think you covered the gist of it, already. And I mean, I really appreciate all this work. I really do. I think I guess one comment I would make is that the goals and action steps as they're currently articulated, do need to keep staying in that sort of 50,000 foot level or whatever the right metaphor is, because it's an annual look that we're gonna be looking at, right, together, so.
Yeah, and so one of the changes, if you were to look at the previous one and this one, is that the goals and the action steps, one is something we've acknowledged needs to be cleaned up. Just a goal and an action are two different things.
Right.
Right, and we need to make sure that they're written in a way that this is an actual goal and these are the actual actions.
Yeah.
But in the previous one, in the previous town plan, they were charts.
Yeah, understood, yeah.
They were-
Like dialing that way back is
Is-
very.
Yeah,
very
and that's,
positive,
but
yes.
now it's making sure that that is an actual goal with steps to reach that goal. As opposed to select board will do this by April 27th, like that's what it was.
Yeah.
And so, but we do need to make sure that they align, right? That is, here's a goal, here are action steps to achieve that goal. And so that's the thing we're gonna look at as well.
Are there members of the community that would like to give specific feedback on the town plan that hasn't been covered in this dialogue? I know of one at least. Is there anybody on Zoom? Well, John, you had circulated some feedback, just
Yeah.
before the meeting.
Even better late than never, it's just late.
It's just late.
And I didn't fully appreciate time constraints, so I apologize to everyone involved. But just for clarification, you mentioned August, your hope is you're gonna get the next iteration, like
That's fine.
in draft.
Yeah, like-
Draft form by August.
Yeah, so then we
That's
would
like
then-
tomorrow.
then you would restart, but then that restarts then the 15-day window, the 30-day window. and
That's
then-
a tight timeframe, but.
Select board, well, I mean, we actually feel like we've got, I think 70 public comments to go through. And then whatever CVRPC comes through with, and then our work with Conservation Commission. And so what we're gonna try to do is do those things in bits and pieces as we go, section by section of public comment, while working with Conservation Commission. And then whenever CVRPC sends it, I've never seen CVRPC comments to one, but I would assume if it's something they're saying we need or needs to be in there, it's probably a pretty straightforward thing that we need to change. And so we do think we can get it done. The good part about it is we don't have to. Once we've got a town plan that's current and those zoning regulations are in, we can take the time we need. Right, we won't be feeling like we have to rush now. That's the goal. The goal. I don't know what action steps go with it.
Yeah.
Just yet.
So, for the record, I'm John Brayman, and I live up on Singleton Road. We all know each other here. And I'm also, the select board's designee on the Regional Planning Commission. And in that capacity, in addition to showing up for the monthly meetings, which I missed last week's, by the way, folks, scheduling conflict. I also have volunteered to be on a number of subcommittees. One of which is the Regional Plan Development Committee. So the regional plan is the overarching plan, the kind of broader set of objectives, and then town plan is supposed to be more finely defined, and they fit under the regional plan's broader objectives. And the staff at the Regional Planning Commission, they kind of have their different task areas, I guess, or areas of expertise. And the Regional Plan Subcommittee quickly came to realize, actually last August, there was I don't want to go too far down this path, but we realized that the staff we have a lot of new staff, like there was a huge turnover. And staff came from other states and they didn't understand kind of the quirky case law to do with regional plans, town plans, and how they interrelate with the Act 250 process, which is a process that is mirrored at the Public Utility Commission for energy projects. The Public Utility Commission incorporates all the Act 250 criteria in its review. And just kind of a point of information. I think it's bad law, but it's the law in Vermont, that if towns don't plan and don't write their plan language correctly, they have little to no effect on the decision-making at the Public Utility Commission. So for instance, Mr. Lilly here was approached by some guy, pick a country in the world, Chile. Some billionaire from Chile drives through town and he's getting apples at Bert's apple orchard, and he's like, "Well, look at that cool farm." And he knocks on the door and he said, I'll give you $5 million for it, and I'm gonna come in here. And why did I pick him?
I don't know.
He's got probably the nicest farm in town, that and the fish farm. But that gentleman from Chile, not to pick on Chile, could buy that farm and tomorrow propose to cover it with solar panels, cover it. And the way our plan is written right now, in this draft is written, we have zero sway or almost zero sway under Vermont law. And that person and that company that he would create would have a greater set of rights than every resident in this town. And have a greater say so over what happens to that property than every person in this town, every person in this select board. Because the case precedent is the language in that the plan actually in Vermont behaves as tribunals in Act 250 and at the Public Utility Commission, acts as a regulatory document. Zoning is just to clarify maybe some nuance of the plan. But they go to the plan under criterion 10 of Act 250 to determine whether a project is in conformance or keeping with what the town wants to see for its future growth and development. And there's case law that dates back to the mid-1990s that says if the language is not directive, i.e. if you don't use language like shall or must or will, they ignore it. And there's a lot of language to do with in the energy section, and then I'll call it telecommunications section, cell towers, that is not directive. And it simply requires the exchange of words like may with shall. And the intent doesn't change, it's the effect of the language in here that the planning commission and I assume the town sees as providing a vision for its future development, and in particular, energy and telecommunications. Some language changes, simple word changes, clarifying language that just clarifies the already existing intent in this plan can and should be made. And Jerry provided me a Word version, which I don't know why it's such a huge file, but I guess it's the photos that are
It's
in
the
it.
photos and all the maps and all.
Yeah. So, we gotta use this upload, transfer thing to get the file to me, because I do better with the Word version, because then I can insert language, and I've done so, and I provided it to very late in time, I apologize to the select board members whose emails are on the webpage. I would give it to all of you if I haven't. So I provided Jordan and Jamie, Jared, Melanie Keene. Those are the only emails I had, with copies of what I just got out this afternoon. And I can go through it if you want the language, or I can just summarize what the language says. The language changes, I used legislative format generally. And new language I added is underlined. I put it in red font so it stands out. So if you go to page 31, that's not even that important.
Well, so I wonder, John, we've been trying to be like really transparent about like why we're kind of moving through this process the way that we do, and signaling as clearly as we possibly can that we still, certainly in the select board's view, and it's supported by the planning commission, there's opportunity to continue to integrate these changes through the next process, and without having to go through each one of them individually. My question would be whether you have any immediate concerns about any of them specifically that you feel would have an acute exposure in the next few months, if it's not modified, or do most of them represent changes that could be considered and integrated in the next kind of refinement process? And, to that end, I think your point about having a directive language is poignant, and one that should be carefully considered for continuity with the rest of the sections. Because this is so tightly tied to the zoning regs as a government. No, I know.
The zoning doesn't, you can't regulate utilities with zoning. They will not look at your zoning. But I hear where you're going, and many times town plan processes take 5 years. Hearing that it's August is a hope, and let's hope that goal is met.
Can I just ask a question, just to clarify, is it possible that the review process that CVRB is doing would address that, John, or not in your?
Well, they deal.
You don't see
Their
that as-
interest is not, the finer points of what a town does.
Okay.
They just make sure that what the town does falls within the kind of the boundaries of what state law expects and allows for.
Okay.
So if you go out of bounds, they will call that out.
This, I think,
And
this
they try to
language
find
is more of a preference, right? Like that something as a town, we would want to say shall, must.
A town could say, we want to cover everything with housing or solar panels or wind turbines or whatever. And that may be okay as long as it's not taking out, I don't know, core forest or something, a wetland or a river corridor or something, but their review is very broad, but I think this, what I'm suggesting can wait, for the following reasons. One, you can work to it right away.
Yeah.
Two, by the way, I'm giving you really short notice. No notice. And the other thing is that the cost, the things that are driving, well, at least on the energy front, these projects have been, the availability of public monies, grant monies, and legally or not, the Trump administration has reined back pretty much every single grant. I mean, in some ways very cruelly. So that plus interest rates have skyrocketed, and three, the tariffs on parts and pieces for these projects have caused basically these projects to be not viable, at least in the near term. So I don't see that guy from Chile
Sorry.
getting off his leather couch and leaving.
Yeah.
So I think Mr. Lily's gonna have to keep it going. Keep his paddle on.
With all the land that I own, I hate planning. I plan myself. I think I've done a pretty good job of keeping things back.
Well, I'm gonna plan it for you now.
Why the hell you are? And, you know, I don't like planning. If you own an acre or two, that's fine. Plan. As much land as I own, I don't like anybody to come in and tell me what we do. You know? And
Hey, would you let me finish? And then you can
no,
go
shit,
on?
you talked all night.
Well, I want to make sure we stay on track here and,
So, yeah, I think this stuff can wait.
okay.
But if maybe, Jamie and Jared and can get it to the rest of you guys.
Yeah, we
There
can.
was an email that I followed, so there's a WeTransfer file.
Yep.
It does its own email. It
Yeah.
says this junk came from John Bravent, and then there's a follow-up email sent to, at least you two.
Yeah.
So it's a general, yeah, you can, it's.
Yeah.
And it just
This is select board at, it'll get.
Yeah, it goes to all of us.
Okay.
You got us all. Don't worry about it. It was just an hour before the meeting, so, yeah. Yeah,
I did.
it was.
I didn't see
oh.
it. No,
Uh,
that's why I said
I'll
you-
forward.
But I'll,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah,
But John, we can absolutely, like, that's the kind of feedback we're looking for.
yeah.
Yeah.
But those exact
And
kinds
so,
of
you
things.
know,
we
for-
do.
For ease of whatever, consideration, incorporation, whatever, understanding.
Yeah.
I put it in a format that, is what's generally used at the legislature, so you know what language should go and what language replaces it or gets added, so, that's just basically it. I also provided language, for cell towers, because you have broad goals, and you even have statements as to how high things can be and where things can be, but it'll be ignored if there's a project of any consequence here, so, that's it.
Well, we will absolutely take that
Yeah,
into
so-
consideration. Absolutely, John. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for
Thank you.
reading it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, John.
But my problem is, when we got.
One problem?
Yeah, one, I got lots of them, but I look at this whole board and what's going on here, and most of it is from Maple Corners. And I don't like Maple Corner running the town. I just, what do you think is so funny about
He's
this?
from over there, she's from over there.
Yeah, we're from all
Or,
over.
yeah, you got a camp on the pond, okay, I don't like Maple Corner running the plant, that's it, I don't.
Well, they do.
We can't incorporate that into the town plan at this
I know.
point, but, so before we, pivot over to the zoning regs, I'd like to make two requests. One is that, the version of the currently modified town plan, so there's a lot of great information on the town plan or on the planning commission's homepage on the website. Everything's very clearly linked to there. The link to the 2025 town plan kicks over to a landing page that has this version of the town plan at the top of that list, but I think it'd be helpful if it said something like as adopted by the planning commission.
Yeah, I can do that.
And then the other one is kind of a question and request, I guess. I think it would be helpful if there's a presentable format for that feedback that you've been compiling to also be posted. Just so that we the community feels like those comments are being.
I could do a thing like here's public comment as of, and here's this date, and it could just be put up, and then I give it a week and as of here.
Yeah.
And I could just update the document as needed. Yeah,
Okay.
that's easy.
Those are my only two requests for now, I guess. And with that, do we have to close the hearing? We just keep it open and we can roll to considering the zoning regs.
Yeah, it's one item.
Yeah. So we'll pivot then, close the conversation on the town plan and move to the zoning regs. And again, just for context, these were substantially approved and passed through Australian ballot by the community. And the reason that we are running this through kind of a parallel operation is because they have to be basically readopted. They were a significant change to the zoning regulations, which the community has kind of established the history of bringing substantive changes of that size and scope before the voters. But you know, this is within the select board's purview for readoption, and because we aren't really discussing or taking up any modifications to what was already upheld by the town voters, that's kind of where we're at. But this is a hearing to kind of capture any continued feedback on them.
Just for clarity on that, the voters approved it in March 24, correct? And so why does the front page of it say draft with proposed amendments, spring 2025?
Yes, good question.
Yeah, the fact that we didn't have a town plan at the time of adoption, at the time of the vote, meant that vote was nullified.
It never actually happened.
So the former zoning regulations are actually what's in effect. And
So the 20, if I'm looking at the bottom of that page, amended by town vote on March 7th, 2017, that's the last effective document.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, thank you.
and the town has the option of either taking it to the voters, townwide vote, or having a select board. And since the town has already weighed in.
Right, the voters have spoken.
Yes.
But if the vote, like interrupt, did not go into effect because of the reasons just explained, doesn't that then allow the pre-existing regs to remain in force?
Yes, and that's why the document says that.
They're currently.
Right, so
It's the
what's the function of the select board voting if they're already?
We're voting.
To adopt the new ones.
It
The
was,
2024 ones will now be adopted.
Oh, I thought you couldn't because the plan wasn't done yet.
Well,
We're going to do
once-
the plan first.
we need to make sure that we adopt the town plan first, and then immediately follow that with a readoption of.
So you're gonna, this is just a hearing, and you're gonna adopt them both at the next.
Exactly.
So at the time the voters voted on the zoning regs, the town plan had not expired. We did have a town
No, I
plan. It
understand.
expired after the vote.
Yes, yes.
No, it's sorry, before.
It expired before the vote.
So, but it seems that you just the vote, you approved.
That was the problem.
Plan, the
That
new
was the
plan. Okay, I got it, yeah.
And
Slow process.
And it was, yeah, I mean, that was, we've had that reviewed by both the town attorney and CVRPC, and everybody was kind of comfortable with that, with that procedure.
And Jordan, we do have, I just wrote it down to put it back up on the website. There is a document of the changes that was
I
put
was
out
gonna
last
ask that
time.
question.
I can just have that put back up.
Yeah.
There for public, right, viewing, just that summary, I think it was a page and a half or something. That's the summary of the major changes.
That would be really
Put that
great.
back up.
That, yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Are there any other areas of public comment on the zoning regulations? Were those up for discussion as part of the previous would like to provide input or feedback on the zoning regulations?
Excuse me, this is Noreen Bryan, and I'm part of the Calais Lakes and Streams Committee. And I just wanted to say we sent in written testimony